This is the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, where we have conversations with everyday martial artists about their histories and how martial arts influence their daily lives. You are listening to the abbreviated version of this podcast, which is the first 20 minutes or so of the show. Please consider supporting the show by subscribing on our Patreon page, www.patreon.com/malmag, and for about the price of one coffee shop coffee per month, you can get access to 4 new podcasts each month, 1 week before their YouTube release dates. You also have access to all of our existing shows, which at this point is about 100 hours of shows for you to enjoy. Individual shows can be purchased at our Gumroad page. That is malmag.gumroad.com. This week I get on Zoom and I connect to Chicago as my good friend Reuben Griffith Jr. is doing some work there. He is actually from North Carolina and is one of the original students of Larry Hartsell. We talk about how he got involved in Jeet Kune Do, studying with Larry Hartsell, and what he's up to now. Sit back and enjoy. Welcome to the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, and I am connecting to the East Coast again and kind of digging in that Hartsell family lineage as well, and talking with a gentleman that I've known through correspondence and known of for quite a while, and a great first experience to get to talk to someone in that family again, so someone that's sort of my older brother in the Hartsell lineage. We're going to, are you in North Carolina? I think that's where you are.
I live in North Carolina. My job has me all over. I'm actually in Chicago right now, but
okay.
North Carolina's home.
Oh, great. Well, okay. Well, Chicago I know quite well. I grew up in Illinois. But here, let me introduce your name before everyone knows who I'm talking to. This is Reuben Griffith Jr. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I guess we should start at the beginning. How and when did you get involved in martial arts?
Wow. Like most kids of my generation, in the afternoons, there was only 3 networks. So watching Batman, and after Batman went off, the Green Hornet came on. I was always that kid that read the credits. So I knew the name Bruce Lee before Bruce Lee became Bruce Lee. But being in a kid that had curly hair and freckles and a name like Reuben, where everybody else was having the Michael Jackson afros, I had appointments for ass whoopings every day after the first grade, so I kind of learned how to fight it. So I started doing boxing and martial arts at the age of 6, just to kind of keep from getting beat up every day. And I discovered that, hey, I'm actually good at this. And I was faking a lot of it. And then we would go to the magazine store, and I was picking up black belt magazines even back then. This is like 1967, 68. So I'm a second grader. And so I was doing, I guess you'd say, taekwondo and also boxing through the Police Athletic League. And happened that Cato was in Charlotte. We used to have a carousel parade for our Thanksgiving parades here in Charlotte. Well, they're in Charlotte. And on occasion, Van Williams and Bruce Lee with the Black Beauty would be in the parade, along with Adam West and Burt Ward. So like any other kid that age, we were like, cool, you know. And I got a chance to go to a theater, and Bruce Lee was there, and he gave all of us kids that were there Cato mask and a little Hot Wheel Green Hornet car. So that was kind of an introduction. So I can say I met the man, but I'm not going to tell the lines because I stood next to him for 30 seconds in 1968 when I was 6 years old, that he taught me Jeet Kune Do. That came from the 18 other people that he taught that taught me. So it started with that. In the early 70s, when he became the big film star he became, of course, Bruce Lee died, and we all idolized him. You know, it was very difficult. I mean, because I looked up to him as somebody that I wanted to aspire to be like. And then that same year, I got hit by a car, fractured both of my legs, and really bad accident, and the doctors told me we may play football anymore or run and play like other kids. And that year, the $6 Million Man was on. He was learning how to walk again. Watching Bruce Lee doing all those things, I just got enamored with, I'm going to do that to get fit. And it just so happened that I saw a piece of history here. This is a picture of the Yellow Pages in 1973, 74.
Wow.
Kung Fu Society. And if you know, I'll pull it up there. It says Larry Hartsell teaching Jeet Kune Do, Chinese kickboxing.
Yeah.
So I'm 11. Okay. This is in the 1970s, so they weren't taking kids. So I was tall for my age, and lied and told him I was 13 because I wanted to train with him, especially when I found out that he was one of Bruce Lee's original students. And in those days, you had to be voted into that group. There was only 24 people, well, 23 people at that time, and that's including the original folks out in Los Angeles, Taki's group, uh, the existing first generation people. There was about 24 people that was in that body. And you're looking at the last person of that voted in group, because I got voted in at that time. And then that process changed because Guru Dan had opened up the Filipino Kali Academy, and the criteria for all that became different. So that was kind of my introduction to it. And I became a devoted student under Larry, along with, and it would be remiss for me not to give a quick shout out to some folks who, along with that generation, some of these folks may or may not still be alive or not. So I'm just going to run their names down real quick. The ones you know, of course, are Dick Carroll or Dickie, Michael Marcellus Brown. They're my brothers that I grew up in the arts with, in addition to Joe Goodnight, Hal Faulkner, Robert Lee Foster, Dr. Tony Gore, Dr. Bob and Mike Moore, Danny White, David Dean, and Don Grubbs. There obviously were people that came after us, but that was the core group of people that were training with Larry in that early period. And it was kind of, and I call it that hardcore banging period, because Larry didn't do a whole lot of finesse teaching. He got more polished when he got back out to Los Angeles. He would say, "Yaha, you bay, everybody put gloves on, let's do this." And we would spar. I've only known Jeet Kune Do one way, as a fighting methodology. I don't treat it as martial art. And that word's been hijacked by the soccer moms, especially here in the South. So if I say I teach martial arts, people bring me someone that I can rock in my arms. And my background is I train tactical knife and things like that. And they go, yeah. So I don't even use that phrase. But short answer, long answer to a short question. That was my start.
Wow, that is amazing. I kind of like that part of the history where I think people that are around now don't really understand that there was that process of a whole class wanting you to be in it, that whole voting into it, because I know that was the process with Dan and Asante for a while, even after Bruce's passing, and he had Backyard Group, he had Kali Academy, and then even the IMB and the Santo Academy. There were, in those larger schools, there was available classwork, coursework, and things like the FMA and all that. But if you were going to get into the JKD, and especially in the more advanced groups, that whole group had to say, yes, that person gets in. And so I don't think there's a lot of people that really understand that.
It was rare if you got one of these. Very rare. One that was signed by Sifu Larry, Joe Goodnight, and Guru Dan, 1975 is the first one.
Wow.
This one was 1984 when I guess I had became a senior under Larry. And this was before the certification process. This was the one that designated me as an assistant instructor to him, because we were teaching under Larry before there was an apprenticeship program. When all that rolled in the late 80s, we all got these certificates. So here's a picture of me standing in Larry's school with all our certificates behind.
Wow.
And yes, Michael Jackson hair in those days.
I'm just a couple years behind you, but not so much that I don't remember those days, because I do. I remember the fashion and all that stuff. I was born in '69, so just a few years younger than you. But I grew up. I remember the '70s quite well, and I remember the '80s quite well. So I remember all that stuff.
Good times, absolutely.
So, were you ever on a committee or whatever you might call it to admit others into that group?
After I was the last of the people of what we would call the first generation. And I have to be very careful how I use that phraseology now, because without me stepping on the toes that I don't want to step on out in the Jeet Kune Do cyberspace, I don't spend a lot of time in cyberspace talking about how good I am. I practice the art. That's what I've done for over 50 years. I've been doing martial arts 56 years now. So, but to answer your question, right after that period of time, Larry was starting to model his teaching after what Guru Dan was doing with the Kali Academy. And so what happened, Guru Dan would come out to Charlotte. He would fly out on his own. And obviously that was a treat, because we obviously got a chance to meet him. And again, this is before there were internet, or I remember Dickie having a Super 8 camera. We were trying to videotape Guru Dan. This is for VHS. And many times we would sit and make notes. Guru Dan would give us notes on the phone, which looked like these. These are his original notes. And he would give them to us over the phone. And we'd have to try to decipher all these Siniwali notes, all of these different methodologies that we had not seen. And the goal was, when he came back, he wanted to be able to see how much of we picked it up. And he would brag on going back to tell Chris Kent and Jeff and those guys out there, because we were trying to keep up with those guys, because you have to remember, there was only 3 schools, period. There was Taki Kimura's group, there was the Inosano Academy, which at that time was Filipino Kali Academy, and the Charlotte School. So there was only 3 places in the world where you could learn Jeet Kune Do. So wow. we were kind of a tight-knit group, so very covetous of that. And so trying to adhere to that standard became very much something impressed upon me, because again, I'm the kid. I'm the baby in the group. So I absorbed everything, and as such, Jeet Kune Do's always been, I call it my good liquor. Even to this day, my students that train with me, they say, I want to learn that first. I say, earn it. You earn it, and then you learn it. So I may start them the way Larry started teaching. Larry might integrate boxing methodology, kickboxing methodology, different things, because we were always in a place of experimentation even then, because we were kind of in front too. And Guru Dan would come out and bring something new, a facet of Panatukan that we hadn't seen, or some aspect of Wing Chun that we hadn't seen. And it would enhance that. And we were Larry's guinea pigs, because Larry didn't care that I was a kid. You drop your hand, he let you know. So,
right.
And it's not taught that way anymore, because now the marketplace, when it is, let me get as many people certified as I can, regardless of their ability to do the material, but they're representing the greatest martial arts fighter that ever walked the earth. That to me, and you see where I'm trying not to step on some toes, but
sure.
Some people might feel some kind of way, because I guess cutting my teeth in that, and when I take the time to look out at the marketplace now, I'm not talking about my contemporaries that do the work, but there are a lot of people that are more keyboard expert than they are expert. Great, you go to a seminar. Great, you get a T-shirt. Great, you see Guru Dan, you get a picture with him. Can you do it?
Yeah. It's funny, the internet, the sort of thing you're talking about kind of reminds me of, where it's just it's a bigger version of where maybe 3 or 4 guys would sit in the basement and talk smack. Now exactly. You can do that in a big chat room. So it's those people were probably always around, I'm gonna guess. But I think, like the clientele, yeah, I think the clientele, like the change you were talking about, where you kind of put up say a banner that says martial arts or whatever, and then someone brings you a baby, and you're thinking, okay, that clientele has definitely changed. I can see because I started martial arts in 82, 81, 82, somewhere in the 81, 82. I'd have to do the math, but I know the people that were taking lessons and doing that thing at that time are different than now. And even this is my 20th year at the Inosanto Academy, and I can tell you the types of people that were there 20 years ago are different than the types of people that are there now. Just what they're looking for, what they're doing is different. And do you consider that good, bad, or just different?
It's a hard, it's a fair question, and because of the politics that have always been associated with this body of work, that's how I prefer to view it. Guru Dan, God bless him, Jeet Kune Do and all of this material that Bruce left behind would have died with Bruce had Guru Dan not made the efforts he's made. As great as he's been heralded, he's never gotten accolades that I think beyond that he should have gotten, because he single-handedly introduced the martial arts to the world. The reason that a lot of Bruce Lee's legacy has survived despite the politics has been his adherence. But like everything else, the marketplace changed with the advent of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and a lot of the mat-specific arts. For example, training with shoes on. Last time I was out in Los Angeles, and I walked in and I saw Guru Dan giving people brown belts, and he just looked at me like I could see I was having a stroke. Reuben, it's okay. It's okay. It's like that's what they want now. Like, okay. Like all I can hear is because that was a different perspective. And then when it comes to the people, now nothing against the people that, and it's like in any group, those who are the most enthusiastic and athletically gifted and have that work ethic, you see that in the performance of them seeking to master the skill.
Right.
You're always going to have a minority of those people, and unfortunately, a majority of people that just kind of want to put their foot in the water. I call it dipping their toe in the pool. Or this is Michael Brown and I have this one that we like to joke about. In the old days, they used to have the magazines, GQ magazine, where you would want to smell like the cologne. You could take the page and rub it on yourself. So I think people want to take the Jeet Kune Do symbol or Bruce Lee picture and rub the smell of it on themselves and say, just because I smell like it, I sound like it, and I can recite it, that I'm doing it. And then they see someone that's really skilled and they go, okay. So to answer your question, the marketplace is dictating more of that than probably I think if he wanted to put a foot down on, he could. But again, Guru Dan's got a worldwide network of students now. As I said, there was 24 of us on the planet in 1974. It's 2024. There's probably within the city of Los Angeles, how many people are apprentice instructors? And then
LA?
Right, just in LA alone, not to mention all the satellites. Right. And what has changed, in my opinion, over the years is that we went from novice in the beginning, you went from novice to beginner, to intermediate, to advanced, and then as you earned your skill incrementally, whether it was in Kali, whether it was Silat, whether it was in Muay Thai, what have you. But then the marketplace went from novice to apprentice. It's almost like you bypassing. And I'm not saying not everybody's doing it. To me, some people, because they can go from novice to instructor, they go back to wherever they're from, take down the Shotokan sign and say they're a Jeet Kune Do master. And I go, maybe 15% of the material that they got in a 16-hour seminar. Give me a break.
Yeah.
That's kind of where that's a hard dance. Now, I know Guru Dan, when he teaches, even at the ages now, God bless him, you see him more often than I do. I hope I live as long and still have the agility that he has. I'm inspired by him every day because he's the last of the living Bruce Lee students of that generation. When he's gone, it really does fall to the next generation. And that generation is going to make the decision based on either the market or the preservation. My banner for legendary fighting arts and fitness, which is my thing, I call it preserving the legacy through innovation, because Reuben always talked about him and Bruce Lee like research and development. He said we were R&D guys. He said we were always experimenting, we were always evolving, we were always researching. But he was also talking about how important conditioning was. Larry had us running, jumping, doing skip rope. Michael and I lifting weights. Dick and I doing thousands of Thai kicks every day. Joe Goodnight, we were in ankle bracelets, weighted ankle bracelets, running down the streets like that. People don't train like that anymore. They just get a certificate and they say, well, my knowledge of it by osmosis is going to make me good at it. Great. Everybody knows how to throw a finger jab, but can you do it? Can you hit the person with it? I know how to do a now tech and all these things, and so I know all the words. I said, great, can you do it? I'm less interested in what you can recite. I'm more interested, can you do it? Because if we're preserving Bruce Lee's legacy. Now, if we were just talking about an actor, or a musician, but even that, there's a standard. He set such a high standard. The man's been dead over 50 years. That you'd have to drop down, in my opinion, my own personal opinion, 1,000 spaces before you would decide who you might list as number 2. That's just how uniquely gifted he was. But again, you listen to a kid that's loved the man since 1968. I wasn't born in the 2000s where the MMA crowd tells you that Bruce Lee was not a fighter and he would lose in 2 minutes against anybody. So what do I know?
Yeah, I mean, those comparisons are always kind of interesting to me. It's like, let me take, I don't know, Jim Brown, the running back, and say, well, he wouldn't last 3 seconds in the NFL today. Well, he hasn't trained for the NFL today. And I think if you took a athlete like Jim Brown and you trained him for the NFL today, he'd be just as great, if not greater than he was in his time. So, I think the same with Bruce Lee. You're talking.
And this concludes the abbreviated version of the podcast. Please consider supporting the program by going to www.patreon.com/MALMAG and subscribing to the show. You can also purchase this individual episode or any individual episode at our Gumroad page. That's malmag.gumroad.com. Thank you for listening to this episode with Reuben Griffith Jr. Coming up next week, I connect to Cincinnati and talk with Sean Sutton. Our Malmag online store at martialartslifestylemagazine.com has a full selection of Timmy B's brand sticks for FMA and Krabiker Bong. Timmy B's brand now selling in Japan as well. Beautiful Timmy B's brand shirts and Dos Manos shirts are available with new t-shirt designs and more products coming soon. An online course in the Dos Manos method for FMA is available under the Courses tab. More courses coming soon. Check out the Places to Train tab to find schools near you, and click on the events calendar page to see what seminars and events are happening all around the world. And of course, visit our main page for articles on the martial arts. Music by Jackal Relic. Martial Arts Lifestyle Magazine and the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast are trademarked and copyrighted by TNT LLC.